All right. Let's talk about Defender for Cloud, what it is, right? So Defender for Cloud is what we call a cloud security posture management and a cloud workload protection solution. What it does, it helps and enables us to find weak spots across your cloud configuration and helps strengthen the overall security posture of your environment, right? So um, the biggest superpower the Defender for Cloud has is that it can help protect all your workloads, right? Meaning we are not talking just for Azure, but all other third-party clouds and hybrid environments. A Defender for Cloud can help you protect. So there are three primary cloud security challenges that Defender for Cloud helps you address. First is getting visibility. I don't know if the screen is very hazy for all of you, but suddenly my slide is also showing up pretty hazy for me. Apologies, hopefully the next slides are better. So anyhow, as I was saying, the first thing you need to do is to get visibility, right? Because it is critical to have proper visibility of your security posture and compliance, so that you know what is the starting point that you have. Now, the next is the second one is an essential capability or a requirement in that, so not a capability, but a requirement for any organization is the capability and the capacity to respond swiftly and effectively to a security breach, which is okay. But identifying a breach can be a significant challenge, right? Because breach doesn't scream that there is a breach, right? There are what Microsoft has seen that it's more than 90 days after a breach before a lot of time a breach is actually identified that something happened. By that time, obviously, a lot of this valuable information has been exfiltrated out and has been kind of stolen. So with Defender for Cloud, you don't have that problem because Defender for Cloud provides you a continuous end-to-end visibility into your security and compliance. But not only that, it also keeps you updated on any latest threats. It will help you keep track of the required security controls for all the workloads and at the same time minimizes the time that you need to respond in case of an attack or a breach, right? So, but none of these hopefully are new to anyone. So let's just move on to the next slide, right? For folks who have been working with Microsoft security products for a while, right, they might remember Azure Security Center that was released in 2016. Azure Security Center and Azure Defender basically has come under one umbrella, which we now call Defender for Cloud. And in addition to cloud security posture management, threat protection for cloud workloads has also become very critical in kind of building your cloud security strategy. So all these ability, like to threat protection abilities for the clouds, were part of Azure Defender. But besides just securing Azure, Defender also has capabilities to support multi-clouds environment, right? This is possible with the launch of our AWS and GCP connectors. You can obviously also connect other clouds like the Oracle Cloud, right? And you can also use Azure Arc to bring in machines from these environments under Defender for Cloud Control. So Defender for Cloud now can actually provide native CSPM support for AWS, right? Even before, I don't know, it might be a year or so that it have started doing it. So basically what is going to happen is that you get a lot of enhancements, right? When you're onboarding AWS resources or AWS workloads, like if you have a EKS Kubernetes cluster, or if you have an AWS EC2 environment, you get a lot more enhancements in bringing those workloads up to Defender for Cloud. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud and Defender for Servers. Obviously, Defender for Servers onboard server products within Defender for Endpoint. With Defender for Servers, and as part of Defender for Cloud, you automatically deploy Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, right? This is what I mentioned in the morning when we're talking about Defender for Endpoint, is that if you have Defender for Servers plan both the plans, either Plan 1 or Plan 2, you automatically get Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, and that Plan 2 includes all the threat and vulnerability management and the threat and vulnerability management base and the threat and vulnerability management add-on. So either one of the Defender for Servers plan will get you all the functionality for Defender for Endpoint's TVM capabilities. Now, looking into Defender for Servers between Plan and one Plan 2, there are some significant, missing features. And I don't think it's a lot. Like I believe between the two, it's about $10. That's the difference between Defender for Servers Plan 1 and Defender for Servers Plan 2. So Defender capabilities includes two types of security solutions to protect your cloud workloads. The first set is the one that offers cloud depth protection for most popular Azure workloads, like your Azure VMs, your app services, your on-premises services, your Kubernetes containers, Azure storage, SQL servers, all of these. And then the second set, which is at the bottom, offers cloud native breadth threat protection for every workload in Azure. That's your workloads like Azure service layers, your Azure network, your Azure DNS, Azure resource manager, or Azure key vault, right? So both cloud depth threat protection and cloud native breadth threat protection are provided through Defender for Cloud. Let's look into the dashboard, right? We will take it from there now. So let's go into Defender for Cloud. So this is the dashboard, right? And as we have been discussing, Defender for Cloud features covers the two broad pillars of cloud security posture management and cloud workload protection, right? Now, the posture management, one of the two primary functions of posture management is visibility, right? One is visibility and one is hardening, right? How do I harden it to, kind of make sure that I am properly protected? So that hardening guidance is the second pillar, and the first pillar is having visibility as to what is my starting point if it's a brand new customer environment. So on the screen, what we have is the dashboard, right? This dashboard is to, again, gives you a bird's eye view of your multi-cloud environment. You can go now from here, you can obviously able to go deeper, right? So let's take a look at some of these cards before we go in a little deeper. So the first one is the security posture or secure score, right? And we have been talking about secure score when we looked into MDE. We have been talking about secure score when we looked into Defender for Cloud Apps. Defender for Cloud has its own set of secure scores, right? Because as I mentioned a bit earlier, Defender for Cloud is continually assessing your resources, your subscriptions, and organization for security issues. And it then aggregates all these findings into this score so that you can tell at a glance your current security situation. Obviously, the higher the score, the lower the identified risk. In this case, my Azure has a lower score, so it has a higher risk compared to AWS or GCP. Those are the two other subscriptions that I have connected to this demo tenant. We will go inside that in a bit. The next one that I want to talk about, or the next card, is regulatory compliance. So regulatory compliance basically gives you insights into your compliance posture. Like basically it will tell you how your organization are meeting specific compliance requirements. What are specific compliance requirements? It depends on the organization and what area they are focusing on. If it's a financial service, they might be having FINRA. If it's a healthcare, they're gonna have HIPAA, right, along with a few others, right? And so you decide, depending upon your organization, what are the correct security benchmarks from a compliance standpoint that you want to assess your environment against. And this regulatory compliance will then do the check, do the assessment, and give you the results. The next one is inventory, right? Inventory is pretty straightforward. It gives you a single page for viewing the security posture of the resources that are connected to your Defender for Cloud environment, right? And all the resources with unresolved security recommendation will obviously show up in the inventory. For example, if I, at a glance, I can see that for all my currently selected subscriptions, I have about 4750 total resources, out of which we have 2,926 which are unhealthy and 1,500 plus which are healthy, so on and so forth. Again, I'll be able to go in deeper, but this is providing me the information at a high level. Right now, at the top of the dashboard, you also see an overview of all your active subscriptions, right? Your how many subscriptions do I have? So I have 2 Azure subscriptions. I have 3 AWS accounts. I have 1 GCP account, and how many recommendations, how many alerts, so on and so forth. Then one over here is the workload protection, right? Workload protection is the one which is basically bringing in the data from Azure Defender. It is the entry point to provide you a view of any alerts that are generated by Azure Defender and by your workloads, right? Like alerts that are generated by your VMs, by your on-premises machines, your Kubernetes clusters, your key vault, your firewall, etc. So all alerts from all products and all subscription will show up in this workload protections page. So let's take a look. Let's start by going into the security posture. Let's take a let's roam around, walk around, not roam around. Let's walk around in here. It was very slow in the morning, so my apologies if it is still slow. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, right? So with the security posture, right, what do I see? I see all my subscriptions in here, right? As I mentioned, I had two Azure subscription. This is one GCP and three AWS. It gives me what is my secure score for each one of them, and what I can also for each the selected ones or for all of them, I can run a workbook to kind of show me what is the secure score over time. So I can say that, hey, it was really bad 6 months back before you hired me, but look, now we are much healthy, right? So you are able to show that trajectory. Hopefully the trajectory is not the other way around, right? So you're able to do all of these. You can run these workbooks, but let's take a look as to maybe, one of the ones that we have, right? So let's see, I have only 37% secure score for my cyber SOC subscription that I have. I have a lot of unhealthy resources. So let's take a look at some recommendations. Right. So once you get into in here, it's going to see that they're all grouped under broader headers, right? And these headers will also tell you, and there might be multiple, action items under each one of them. But these broader headers will also tell you that if you take care of those one or more action items that's under, say, enable MFA, that is going to have 18% potential score increase to my secure score. So I'm going to go up from 37% to 51%. Did I say it right? No, 37% to 35, 34, 35%. Yeah, God, Jesus. Yeah, 30. What am I doing? 55% if I enable MFA. Sorry, I'm not that bad at math. It's just I'm a little tired. So if you want to see, you can kind of expand any one of them. So let's say we expand this, and it actually shows you what are the different items that you need to do. All right, let's expand a few more to kind of see. So this has immediate security configuration. This has a lot of action items that I can take care of. Now, interesting in here is that it gives you some legends, and these legends are very helpful, right? So like this one basically says that there is a quick fix button that is available that you can utilize to apply a remediation, which is basically install log analytics agent on the VM that's missing it. You can do it with one click. This one is able to allow you to do that. This one says that this is in preview, meaning even if you fix it, which is great, we are asking you to fix it, but this is not going to have any impact onto your score, right? And so you have had this one, which basically says the arrow basically says that we see it, but why don't you create a policy so that this problem doesn't arise for this specific, any future VMs, for example, is not going to have a problem. So this can be managed by a policy, and it can walk you through as to how to build that policy, right? So these legends are super, super helpful. So if you open up any one of them, so it's going to give you a ton of information. It's going to tell you how often it updates. Doesn't necessarily mean that it updated 24 hours back. It can be updated 5 hours back. It can be updated 5 minutes back, or it can be updated 24 hours back, right? You can also see the query that it ran to, find out what it found, right? You can see the whole query in here if you need to. But the thing that is important to us and valuable to us is understanding what the issue is, right? So the issue is explained in here. What are the recommendations? What do I need to do to fix these issues? It also talks about all these recommendations and how do I fix the problem, right? So this is where I was saying it had the lightning legend, meaning that there is a quick fix that's in here. So if you select in real life, not going to happen for me because I don't have actually these machines doesn't exist. But in real life, if you select the machines that you want to install it and get it fixed, this fix button will get highlighted. You click fix, and it will then run this logic that is specified in here for your review, and then it will execute it and hopefully remediate all these specific sort of recommendation that is showing up, right? So for one that doesn't have a quick fix one, so let's pick up one. So let's say this one. If it doesn't have a quick fix recommendation, it will still have detailed remediation steps. This is not really that much detail because this is just says that it should be configured securely. Let me get another one. You can see it's on this one where it says internet facing VMs should be protected with an NSG, which is a no-brainer. You can see that it has there is no quick fix because it doesn't have access to the NSG, but it on your Azure environment, but it actually gives you all the detailed information as to how to protect or how to get that NSG properly protected, right? So these are okay. So that's your let's see, anything missing that I wanted to show, right? I think I covered everything. So that's your security posture, right? So as you make fixes, your secure score will keep going up, right? All right. So let's go back to our main page. Let's then look into our regulatory compliance page. So, but as I mentioned when I was showing you guys the cards, that Defender for Cloud helps streamline the process for meeting your industry-specific compliance requirements, right? This is a massive benefit to our customers, especially from regulated industries, because they need to really always ensure compliance with their specific regulatory standards. And Defender for Cloud can continuously compare the configuration of the resources with requirements that is specified in those standards and benchmarks, and give you and update this data, right? So that is super valuable. By default, there is the cloud security benchmark that is always there, and I believe there's a two or three more that is there by default. But the cloud security benchmark is our benchmark on how Microsoft sees how your Azure network should be protected. And there will be a lot of overlap, right, with secure score. The things that you have fixed in secure score will then start showing up as fixed in here, but you can basically get to it also from here. You can go in, take a look, see what it's talking about, which resource is it complaining for. Now, in this case, it's all green, but in this case, for example, managed identity should be used in web apps. It will then basically tell you what it is, same way as it showed us under secure score, which are the affected resources, what are the remediation steps that you need to do so that you can fix those problems, and then your compliance kind of keeps going up, right? So you can see I have a lot in here. You can actually add more. Obviously you might not need all of these, but if you have specific requirements, you can go to, I believe, environmental settings oh yeah, you have to select the subscription. So let's select the subscription, and then you have it brings you in two important places. One is what are all the other Defender workloads, like this is Defender for storage, Defender for containers, Defender for key vault, that you want to enable, right? It has a cost, so you want to obviously make sure that you are aware of those costs. There is a cost calculator also, which is in the pricing page that you can use. But on the other hand, there is what we needed to look into is, where is that, for the um, other compliance regulatory standards. Oh, I think it's under security policy. Yeah, there it is, right? So you can see that some of them are out of the box. The SOC TSP, ISO 27001, the PCI DSS, and our own cloud security benchmark for Microsoft. These are deprecated, but this is obviously available. And then all these other ones you can select, and there's lot one in here that you can select, and then it will show up under your regulatory requirements. I mean, yeah, under your regulatory compliance, sorry, not regulatory requirements. So one of the other things I want to also say that, right, because there are stuff from this is the one, the GCP. AWS, who creates these? Like who creates these benchmarks? That's not created by us. This is created by AWS and provided to us. This is created by Google and provided to us. But we are just helping with the evaluation so that we can show you where your customer might be falling short. All right, so let's go back to the main page. Before I go to inventory, I want to maybe take a second to talk about workflow automation, right? This is a very important one that you can also use in Defender for Endpoint. Obviously, here you can use it in Sentinel. So if anyone is new to this is basically what we call logic apps. Well, logic app is an application that basically triggers a workflow automation, right? Means that you can specify a ton of steps depending upon how the first step was. So you can put conditions, and depending on those conditions being met, it can pick up other additional information and take another action. And depending on that action, you can do other stuff. So there's a lot of stuff. Sorry, they're not the best description of a workflow automation, but you can basically automate everything. Say, for example, you have an alert, right? You can have that alert get automatically picked up because a certain condition is met. You can assign it to someone automatically, right? So that's a very simple automation. But you can take it further. You can say, okay, if this criteria is met, a specific event ID has been brought up. If this event ID has been brought up, meaning the criteria is met, I am going to, capture XYZ information from that event, right? And like the machine name, the username, the SAM ID, whatever that is, right? And I'm making stuff up. And then I want to assign it to a particular queue in ServiceNow, or I want to send an email, or I want to do this. So there's all these things you can do with your own logic apps, right? What I have over here is 3 that someone created. They actually are not complete. But let's say, for example, this one, whoever was starting it was trying to create a logic app to open a Jira ticket, right? So you can actually see the logic app by clicking on it. And you can see what is the status of all the time that logic app has been executed. I'll let it run and I'll come back to this. But yeah, I'll give it a minute and I'll come back to it. Hopefully it will have fetched the information by that time. So that's your workflow automation. The reason it's important is because you want to, looks like now it's, it seems like it's really struggling. But anyhow, with the logic apps, it basically allows you to automate, and you do need automation for a mid-size to a big size. Even for a mid-size, if you don't have automation, there's going to be a lot of manual work that your SOC analyst has to continuously go do, a lot of redundant work in that sense, right? All right, so let's go back to our main page and talk about inventory, right? All right, so where was I? Was at inventory, right? So the inventory page is pretty straightforward for Defender for Cloud. It basically provides a single page for viewing the security posture for all the resources that are connected to Defender for Cloud. And this might be native Azure VMs, it might be on-premises VMs, it might be Linux machines. All those have been onboarded through Azure Arc. It can be machines in AWS or GCP. All of them you will be able to kind of see in here. And you can, if you want, or if you need to, you can also go in and look at the details of each and every machine that is in here. Okay, seems like it's working again, right? So you can see for this MDC demo virtual machine, there's quite some risks and issues and recommendations that has been highlighted, right? So you can take a look. Oh, this is maybe one thing that I should point out now that I'm using the PowerPoint itself, is that this, like, if you have Purview integration enabled, it makes this inventory really, really helpful, because now you're able to also read into the data sensitivity labels that is coming from Purview. So you will now know which machine has what type of data in there. That is obviously super helpful. So you'll know, if a machine has secret or confidential, obviously that machine is something that you want to give preference when you're trying to, rectify any issues or something that is showing up in all the machines or in some of the machines. So this labeling will only come once you have enabled the integration with Purview. All right, so let's look into workload protections, right? The blade that was not opening for us. So workload protection is basically Azure Defender is the cloud workload protection platform, right? So let's take a look at some of them. Yeah, my focus is on these, right? Because what it shows up over here on the top, what it shows over here are all the different workloads that you have, right? And over here are all the security alerts that can give you the, I mean, I always wondered what's the benefit of having this view, but it also kind of tells you that, hey, maybe this was a Sunday. Why is there a huge jump on security alerts that Defender is catching on a Sunday? Right? So it might be something that might stand out, right? But in this case, I can't click to show you, but something normally that I'll be clicking to find out what exactly happened on this day. The alerts are like 4 times of a normal day. What I'm going to be focusing on in this these advanced protection, right? Which allows you to really leverage more advanced capabilities of your Azure Defender, offering that you have. Let's take a look. Oh, what is this? So I'm sorry, I don't know what the next slides are. So this next slide is basically insights, right? Insights are, it's like a rolling pane of news, suggested reading, high priority alerts that basically gives you insights into maybe more pressing matters, right? So that you can take a quick look into what's happening in your subscription. If I have to highlight, this is the place to come and see it. But one of the first things that I want to show in here is vulnerability management, VM vulnerability management, as you see over here. So that to me is primarily one of the big benefits that you get from Azure Defender, right? Because if I might onboard my machines, right, and or my servers, and if I talk about servers, let's say I hardened my OS, but if I have vulnerable software running on these machines, that will immediately nullify all the great work that I have done, right? That's where you can utilize the vulnerability management, because with Defender for Cloud, you can utilize agentless scanning and get visibility into installed software and the vulnerabilities of those softwares that's running on your server workloads, right? And that's not only just for Windows, it's also for Linux, right? And all of this, I just want to re-emphasize the thing that all of this happens without installing any addition, or all of these things can happen without installing any additional agent, right? It's super important, right? Because when you have a traditional agent based approach, you have to schedule it, install the agent, that might require a reboot, which is very difficult for a server. You have to figure out, I don't know, network connectivity requirements, all of those things, like, for the data to come back to the source, all of these things, and how it's going to impact machine performance. But with this agentless scanning, none of those issues are there, right? So very important, super beneficial for our customers to kind of make sure that it's not just the OS we are looking at, we're also looking at installed software vulnerabilities. Now, there is one that is already there. If like one scanning engine that is already there. You also have the scanning engine from Qualys. We also support the vulnerability scan that you can privately license from Rapid7, right? Or basically you can bring your own. That's what I'm getting to. Now, next I want to talk about is just-in-time VM. Oh, so it goes to Azure Resource Graph. Okay, so let me go back. Sorry, I'm just following the PowerPoint and figuring out what it wants to show next. So Azure Resource Graph is basically, you see what over here, it says high severity VM vulnerability alerts, right? How does it know? Right? Which are the ones which has the most attack resources, for example, right? How does it know? It's no different, but then how we were doing KQL queries when we were looking into hunting and advanced hunting during Defender for Endpoint discussion, right? Again, all the information that we are collecting is stored in Azure, in the Azure cloud, and we are basically running KQL queries to get the information in the way that we would want to get, right? So if just from Defender for Cloud standpoint, this is how it looks. You can see all the schemas in here, and then you can basically utilize any of the queries that's in here. You can also go into, kind of get some assistance in building your query. You can bring in community queries if you want, or you can, write your own, run the query, get the information, right? So again, all the information is available on the Azure Resource Graph Explorer. If you need to, run a query that is not available by default on any of the reports. Okay, next we want to talk about now just-in-time access, VM access. This is obviously everyone understands how critical it is, because we have always talked about just enough access, right? Which says that a administrator, if he should be, a security reader role, or if he should be some other RBAC role, he should be only giving the role that he needs and should not be getting any more access than what he should have. Now, so just enough access, this is kind of the same, but it's only for the VM, meaning this is just in time VM, where we are saying we are only going to allow access to these specific virtual machines only from specific IP address or IP addresses, and only on specific ports and predefined ports, and only for a specific amount of time. So three criteria, right? So basically at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that these are all the just-in-time VM access, by the way, only works for Azure machines, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. But I believe, you know what? No, I believe just-in-time VM access works for Azure and AWS machines. Doesn't work for Oracle or Google Cloud, right? But basically what happens, let's talk about Azure, is that in front of these VMs, there are, network security groups. Network security groups are the groups that provides ACLs. These ACLs are the ones that decides which, connection should be allowed to even come in to those VMs, right? By default, in front of all the VMs, the network security group says all inbound entry is denied. All inbound access is denied. So no one can access those VMs from outside, right? Even from a different subnet within the organization, right? I mean, when I say outside, I'm not saying from the internet. Obviously, that's a big no-no. And to do that, you have to do Azure Bastion. But I'm talking also about like from within the organization's network, but not in the same subnet as these VMs, right? So if NSG says I cannot connect, I'm not allowing anyone to connect, how do I manage these machines if I need to manage like from a RDP, like a remote desktop or SSH standpoint? So that's where just-in-time VM comes in from only from an administrative standpoint, right? This is not from an application configuration or fixing an application issue. Normally, hopefully that you can do it through the app itself. But if you need to do RDP or SSH from an administrative standpoint, you can go in and first of all, create the rule for just-in-time VM access, specify which ports users are allowed to connect, like 3389 for RDP. What is the one for SSH? What is the port for SSH? 153 or something? I forgot, right? 3389 for RDP, I remember, right? And then once you do that, now when a user or an administrator needs to connect to a VM2, he can select VM2, specify his IP address or his team's IP addresses from the devices they will be connecting from, and what is the time frame. SSH is 22. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know why I was thinking 153. Thanks. And then automatically the NSG rule will be updated to allow connection to these specific, like in this case, port 22, only from those specified IP address and only for the allocated specified amount of time. After that, the NSG will revert back to deny all connections. So that just-in-time VM access. Let's talk about adaptive application controls, right? These are all functionalities that you get as part of the Defender for Servers P2 capabilities, right? So what is adaptive application control? So adaptive application control allows you to create a white list of applications that should be running on a particular server or a particular group of servers, right? Because if you really think about it, a ton of time, companies have collections of machines that routinely just runs the same processes, right? So that allows Defender for Cloud to use machine learning to analyze these applications running on the machines and create a list and add those applications as known safe software that should be running on these machines. Now, on top of that, if it now finds other application is starting to show up and run in some of these machines, it will then start to flag it. Right now, do understand that there is no enforcement option. So I can't enforce that, prevent any other application except these recommended applications, which is basically the applications that are whitelisted, and deny any other application from running. I don't do Defender for Cloud doesn't have that capability, but at least it will show up on the reports for you to kind of go immediately take a look and find out, why are these other applications running in this set of machines, which it shouldn't be in that sense. Or if it is, you can come in and manually add that application into the recommended applications pool. So that was adaptive application control. Let's talk about file integrity monitoring, right? So file integrity monitoring, or FIM, it is basically used to be called change monitoring. What it does is that it examines, sorry, I have a hard time pronouncing that, examines files, or evaluates, much easier for me, evaluates files and registries that are critical to the operating system for your application software, etc. Right? So it will then keep a lookout for any changes that might be happening, so that it might indicate an attack. Right? Now, you can, there are FIM policies or file integrity monitoring policies that are provided, but you can also create your own FIM policy. Like you can create a FIM policy to say this server should not be having any more changes, just evaluate and let me know if there is any file changes in the server, right? You can make it as broad as that. Obviously, that is not common, but you can do that. Or you can basically, narrow it down to what you're actually mostly interested in, right? So what it does is that it uses a comparison method. The Defender for Cloud will use a comparison method to determine if the current state of the file is different from the last scan of the file, right? Now, for monitored entities like the files and folders that you have specified, it can then alert you if a file or registry key has been, modified or removed or newly created. If the file size, it will also tell you if it has been modified in a way that the size has changed, right? Or the ACL on the file has changed, or the hash. Obviously, if someone's making a change to the file but trying an evasive technique by not modifying the ACL or the size, it will still change the hash. So you will be able to you will be alerted of all those changes, right? So this is a really helpful one, and it's actually a requirement for certain regulatory customers. Like if you have FinServ customers, you will have to deliver on file integrity monitoring. So adaptive network hardening is, I believe, one of the last things that I want to cover. But adaptive network hardening is something super interesting, right? So we talked about NSGs, again, network security groups, which are in front of your VMs. These NSGs are only, you should be only configuring it to allow only, the type of traffic, like, the port and protocol in that sense for the source and destination, the type of traffic to these VMs and nothing else. But can there be a drift over time? Is it possible that someone else might be modifying the NSG because of something they needed to do and forgot to change it, excuse me, to revert it back? So now your NSG has more ports it's allowing compared to what it should be. That's where adaptive network hardening comes in, because it uses a machine learning algorithm that factors in actual traffic, like the trusted configuration that it knows, along with other threat intelligence factors, to provide recommendations to say, okay, these are additional ports that are actually open. Maybe you should look into closing it. Or if it sees that there is a real reason for certain ports to be open, which is not open, and that's what causing a problem, and that's a valid port and protocol combination that it should be open, it will also point that out to you. So it's basically trying to ensure, looking at using machine learning and looking at the traffic that's going in and out constantly from these set of VMs using that NSG. It's trying to kind of further lock down the NSG to make sure that the minimal number of ports and protocols are allowed through that NSG.